Okay, I understand the need for clarity. I'll elaborate. When it comes to the subject of dignity statements, we have to ask ourselves, how many times do you make a dignity statement? How often? When's the right time to make them? What kind do you make? Well, it depends how you define dignity statements. If you mean the activities that I've described, then, well, I go into details about appropriateness for those particular events. However, you could define a dignity statement in a more chronic sense. Then you could say that every moment of your life, on and off duty, could be a kind of dignity statement. And I'll tell you what I mean by that.
Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV. It's St Theo 2019.
Now, regular viewers will know what I mean by St Theo's, but for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, I will explain. By St Theo's, I mean on St Theo's Day, I'm referring to the feast day of St Theobald of Ruggiero, which is June the 1st. Now, St Theobald of Ruggiero was a monk, and he became famous for carrying people from local small villages to large towns so they could receive medical treatment, because there was none in their villages. He lived in Piedmont, Italy, and this is actually not a photograph of St Theo. This is an image. It was designed by Sophie the Porter's poet and performed by me, and I'm afraid St Theo himself could not provide a photograph because he died 800 years ago. Fair enough, I'd say. But anyway, that's basically what I do. He was born in 1170, and he is the patron saint of hospital porters. And because I am a hospital porter, I was, and I actually made the decision to celebrate St Theo's Day before I was summarily removed from NHS portering. I decided to do that, and I've continued since I was removed. So that's a little bit of background to what I'm talking about. Now, I used to organise events at the Hospital Social Club, but of course that's gone now, because I couldn't go in there anyway. So now I organise events in other areas, and they've always been very popular, and I'm pleased to say they're still very popular.
Okay, I'm on the bus to the John Radcliffe Hospital right now. It's a bit miserable day actually out there, but these are the flyers I'm actually giving out. I design new ones every year, and I'm quite pleased with it. It's the same basic design I've used every year since I started St Theo's. Feel free to pause and read. That is the actual venue, time and place. Please feel free to come along. It's just a public event. I mean, we haven't hired any rooms, which mean in a pub. We haven't hired any rooms. It's not going to be any speeches or anything like that. We're just getting together in a pub. So if any viewers want to come along, please feel free. Hope to see you there. Interesting name this road has. It's actually called Titup Hall Drive, as you'll see shortly. I was looking on this website. We have all funny place names around the world, and this is listed on there. There's loads of others. It's really, really funny. And there's one in, there we are, Titup Hall Drive. There's loads in Australia as well, as you'd expect, but no in the Aussies. Okay, we'll shortly be entering the hospital. There's a new bus route that was opened a few years ago. You enter in through the Osler Road entrance, this is Osler Road. Excuse me, I've got a cough. There's the manor surgery there, and this is the entrance to the hospital. I showed you it from ground level. I'm now going to show you it from the upper level of a double-decker bus. So you see a lot more from up here, and it means I can keep filming as we go in. The first thing you see is the Women's Centre. That's the maternity and gynecology services. It's that building there. We'll see in a minute. But I'll show you that. I'll show you Manor House first of all. That's the Manor House. There's Manor House, and there's a Manor House annex beside it, and the stable block. Those are administration centres for the hospital. Used to be for the entire trust. That chimney there is the industrial block, and this you see coming up here is the original clinical area. That is the Women's Centre. Used to be John Ratcliffe Maternity, JR1. That was the first. That was the original first hospital, and I was there. I was in there for 9 years. I've told you about delivery suite on previous videos. I'm going to try not to repeat myself actually on these videos too much. That's the maternity entrance, and on the far side is the gynecology entrance. The two are very carefully separated, and the bus stop is over there, as you can see those buses. And so I'm going to have to stop filming once I get off the bus. And they're building something new over there, I've just noticed. God knows what that is. There's that staff accommodation, half a century house. That's the staff quarters there. And God knows what that is they're building there. People sometimes ask me, how long, Ben, are you going to keep doing these St Theos? Right, well, I'll tell you. The last ever St Theo celebration will be on the year I die. If I die after June the 1st. Right, the Women's Centre there, industrial block. In this field, which I'm surprised no one's built anything on yet. I'm now, I've just come out of the John Ratcliffe Hospital. I went into the building, and I noticed, first of all, they built this, there's new stuff being created, new stuff being constructed there. They're always building something new here. Obviously that can't go on forever, but they've always seemed to have some new thing building. I don't think the building has ever stopped since they laid the first brick, almost 50 years ago now. It's been redecorated again. There's new parquet flooring, there's some new pictures. They're continuously redecorating here. And I think that's a bad sign. I think it's a sign of an unhealthy institution. If you're part of any institution and you find they suddenly have an obsession with image, with changing their image, updating their image, changing their name, giving themselves a new brand, whenever that happens, you know that institution is in trouble. And that's what you see here at this hospital. In fact, you saw it while I was there. They were spending an absolute fortune on doing up the main entrance. I mean, they've rebuilt the main entrance to the hospital, both sides, JR1 and JR2. They've rebuilt it twice in the last 15 years. And what's more, I see now they're rebuilding A&E. They're rebuilding the emergency department entrance. There's a huge, massive, the whole area sealed off. They must be having I don't know how they're getting the patients in and out, but they're rebuilding the accident emergency entrance again. When they did it, about 5 years before I left. They're doing it again. They're rebuilding it again. This must be costing millions. At the same time, they're shutting down wards because they don't have the money. They're making nurses redundant. They don't have the money. They do have the money, but they're doing what all bureaucrats do. They're spending it on things they want to do because they don't, they've been conditioned not to think in any way other than like robots. And they know that they know very well that the institution is sick, the institution is corrupt, it's been starved of funds, it's been mismanaged, it's been put into terrible debt by the private financial initiative system and other things I've talked about on previous St Theo's videos. It's been torn up. They've been bringing tin pot contractors to run everything, which is a waste of time. It's in a terrible state, the NHS. It's in an awful state. And it's meant to be. It's basically being dismantled. It's been deliberately dismantled. But it's like Brexit. They can't just come out and say we don't like this, so we're going to stop it. It's one of the country's most best-loved institutions. They have to make it appear unworkable. They have to degenerate it slowly until it appears completely unworkable. And then they say, no, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to give up on this NHS because it's not working. Sorry, we don't want to do it, but we have to. And that is, the fact of the matter is the sickness and the damage and the sabotage was deliberate. It was sabotage, it was deliberately done, so that they could justify that. Of course, how many people are going to die and be left maimed as a result? I don't know. What's more, they don't know and they don't care. Right, I'm now at the edge. I'm now at the edge of the hospital site now, the John Ratcliffe. Now, right next door to the John Ratcliffe is the Manor Hospital, which is a private hospital, part of the Nuffield Group. I'll tell you what, it's actually quite nice in there. I remember when they first opened this, they actually poached a few people until someone put a stop to it. But I know a couple of the guys, one of the theatre porters went over there, and he was like offered an extra £2 a year. I remember. I don't think the word poach. I think aggressive recruitment, I think, is the word used. But they did actually recruit a number of people from the JR, including a very senior cardiac surgery sister. I remember she went over there. Very senior, very experienced cardiac sister. And you could say, well, that's awful. They lost a very, very valuable member of staff. But of course, as I'll explain later with another case, they don't regard any staff as valuable. And secondly, if she can earn twice the salary working for the Nuffield Group and not have to do shifts or anything like that, well, what would you do in her position? That's something I think it would be better if I went over there. I mean, they did approach me too, and I said no. I don't know. I mean, I do. The problem is the John Radcliffe. I loved the place. That's the problem. I loved it. I really loved it. It was my home. My true home. Okay, I'm going to go into the manor now and drop off a St Theo's flyer there. Right, I've just come out the manor hospital, which is just there. You can just see a bit of it there. I just walked in. I had to walk all around the building. And it's a very smart new building. Very polished and shiny like everything in the manor hospital. There was... there's like a slope leading down to an underground car park. It just goes straight down to the car park. And you know what my conspiratorial mindset is like? I'm thinking to myself, what's down there? Funnily enough, I was just walking around the side of the building from the alleyway leading to the John Radcliffe. So it's a bit noisy in this area. And this guy was there. I think he was like, he wasn't portering, I think he was on the store staff or something. And he sort of like, he went up to one of the staff entrance doors on the side of the building, and he sort of pushed his forehead against the door. And I thought, that's strange, what's he doing? It's almost like, when I first thought, there's a retina scan there. So I went out and had a look, and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see an eye reader or anything like that. I thought it was very odd. Anyway, I'm going to head for the Nuffield Orthopaedic Centre next. Dropped off, went into the atrium, very nice. It's smaller than John Radcliffe, a lot smaller, but it's much cleaner. It's much more sort of like sophisticated, and you can see it's run better, I think. These staff on the reception staff smile. I just handed them a flyer and I said, "Happy St Theo's Day," and I walked out through the sliding doors. You know, I mean, I don't know. See, I don't go along for this. It's a big subject. I mean, see, the NHS turned 70 like this last year. This is just after the last St Theo's Day, actually. There was a big celebration because the NHS turned 70 years old. That's right, June 1949 it was first created. And I actually remember very well the 60th anniversary. That was in 2009 because I was invited to the office of the Lord Mayor of Oxford, who's actually a woman. She's actually one of my. Her name was Susanna Pressel, and she was one of my teachers at school. She didn't remember me, which is good because she was an absolute bitch. I didn't like her. I didn't like many of my teachers actually. And there was a cake and everything, and the newsmen were there. I got my photo taken. I'll probably find it in the archive somewhere. But anyway, the NHS turned 70. But really, the NHS does not really exist anymore. I think what's happening to it now is just a coup de grace. The actual, of its destruction. Because it really is not what it was. I mean, of course, it still exists. I think it'll always exist as a brand name. Hang on a minute. It'll always exist as a brand name, but it won't be like a publicly funded state healthcare based on the ability to, without being based on the ability to pay. That's gone. There was a very depressing lecture by Alison Pollock about this, and it's happened. We allowed it to happen, and they did it, as I said, through gradualism and through clever tricks. It's like Brexit. Sorry, we just can't do it. We can't make it work. So
So that's the situation. It's really, there'll be an insurance system like they have in the States, Medicare. Now I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that I'm a fan of Stefan Molyneux, so why don't I agree with him on this? Because he's totally against state healthcare. Well, I don't have to agree with everything he says, and besides, maybe he's wrong about this. Maybe there is a role for the state to do certain things in a certain way. Maybe I'm a minarchist rather than an anarchist like he is. Maybe, because I'm only saying this through experience. I'm only saying this because NHS privatisation has been an unmitigated disaster. I don't know, maybe it'll say it's crap, it's crapitalism, not capitalism. Believe the big chatty forehead or something like that. But whatever it is, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Oh. In fact, it's been an absolute unmitigated catastrophe. And as I said, it's deliberate. It's been done on purpose. Just going to head up this road now towards the Knock. The Knock seems to change less than the JR, so I'm interested to see if it's changed since I went there last year. If I remember last year, and you probably remember better than me, but the weather was a lot nicer than it is today. It's actually pretty miserable. But you know, I'm an ex-hospital porter. I've got to just press on regardless. I mean, I'm feeling pretty lousy at the moment. Actually, it's just nothing serious. It's just a bit of I feel lightheaded and very, very tired, and my arms and legs are very stiff. I think it's a bit of man flu. Not serious. It'll pass over. I'm still getting on my GC. I'm still working. I've got my gilet jaune on. I've been working. So who says we can't get on with our day when we've got man flu, ladies? So, happy birthday, NHS. But it's not really a birthday party, what happened last year. It was more like a deathbed gathering. Or even a wake. It's gone, it's dead, it's gone. And that's a shame. I mean, and if Molyneux was right about this, then healthcare services should improve drastically with the privatisation of the NHS. It should have improved enormously. We get rid of this state-run bureaucracy that he hates so much. But it hasn't. I'm not saying that for any ideological commitment. I'm not a socialist. I'm saying it because I've observed it. I've seen it happen. The change that happened over the hospital in the 23 years I was there. Almost unbelievable. That's what I'm saying, really. Anyway, more news. I found out that Colin Wilson was a hospital porter. Now, this was a bit of a shock. Now, if you're not familiar with Colin Wilson, it's worth looking him up because he's a great thinker, actually. He's an intellectual, sort of self-taught intellectual who studied things such as the paranormal and UFOs and altered states of consciousness and things like that. And there was actually a Colin Wilson conference last year in Nottingham. I've got to go to one of those. Oh, there's so many things I want to go to. I know Anthony Peake is speaking at the next one, but he was an amazing chap, and he's written. The thing is, my mum used to be really into Colin Wilson, and so when she died, I actually discovered some books of his in her collection in her library, and I actually inherited those, and I've been reading them. It's a real shame actually about my mum, because if it hadn't been for Menzies Lithe and the psychological attack on my family, just think how well my mum and I could have got on as we got older. She was really on. I think she was pretty much very on my wavelength. I found other books. I found some books by Carlos Castaneda as well, and those books by Lyle Watson I showed you, they were hers. So my mum used to have a very, very open mind before Menzies Lithe got hold of her. But he was a hospital porter apparently at this hospital in Nottingham. Now he wasn't just a porter. He was also a pharmacy assistant at one point. I know this because he describes in one of his books a situation where he was very depressed, and he was going to commit suicide. And being a pharmacist, of course, he's got no end of methods. He's got no end of things he can get hold of that he can inject himself with or swallow that will definitely do the job. And he actually done this. He'd gone into the cupboard and he found himself a bottle of something, and he poured out enough of it, certainly enough to kill him. He was about to take it when he had this amazing Kundalini experience, which changed his life. and so that was really, really amazing that he had that Colin Wilson was. I mean, it almost makes sense to think that he was a hospital porter, actually, considering he was such an avant-garde thinker, such a non-conformist genius. I mean, no disrespect to you civilians out there, but you know, you have to be a hospital porter to be like that, I think. You really do. And so, well, the funny thing is about Colin Wilson, I mean, I was reading in, because you know, I read Nathaniel Brandon's book. I showed you that when I was on the coach to Newcastle. I've also read Barbara Brandon's biography of Ayn Rand, and there was a situation where Colin Wilson wrote to Ayn Rand. He actually wrote a letter to Ayn Rand asking her something. I don't know what he was asking her for, but this was like in the 50s, when basically the collective, her collective, was like a fully fledged, very closed society, and you know, the dragon guarding the gate was, of course, Nathaniel Brandon, and he wrote Colin Wilson back a really nasty letter, and Colin Wilson apparently, he mentions this. I don't know where he mentions. I'm not seeing it, but Brandon mentions it in her book, in her biography, The Passion of Ayn Rand. And Colin Wilson was really upset because Ayn Rand never saw his letter. He was kind of like, because he was like having a fling with her. He was very protective of her, and he wrote back to Wilson telling him, forget it, I'm not gonna bother Ms. Rand with this. Stop wasting our time and go away. So you can see that Nathaniel Brandon himself was a pretty messed up young chap in those days. Yeah. Now, have you seen Porters? There is a TV series called Porters. Now it is. I've watched the pilot. There was a pilot series last year of 3 episodes, and I watched them. And I came into it quite late, actually, because I knew the series were there, and I chided myself a bit because I thought this is the sort of thing I should really be on the ball with. And the same goes for the new series. There's a new 5-episode series which I've not watched yet, but it is on UK TV. It was on the Dave channel. It's a situation comedy set in an NHS hospital among the porters, and it's really good. It is really, really wonderful. I mean, the funny thing is, and I've been saying before, I mean, I did this article, I mentioned it in a previous video. I hope this ambulance goes past quick. Sorry, it's going to be a bit noisy now. Sorry. On his way to the... God knows where the A&E entrance is at the moment. And they're rebuilding the whole side of the hospital, it looks like, on the south side where the A&E entrance is supposed to be. Anyway, Porters is this sitcom, and it's so perceptive. It's got all the kind of... you can see they've done their research. I mean, I could have helped them with this. I've already acted as a consultant to a film director over hospital portering matters. I could have been a consultant to them, but obviously they did find someone who knows their business. And it's perceptive in many, many ways, and it's got several brilliant stories. It's really funny, as a comedy should be, of course. And there's this rather over-enthusiastic young chap called Simon Porter, the porter. And there's this really young, short black woman called Frankie, who's always played by Susan Wokoma, and she keeps selling off the drugs and things like that. And one of the best things about it is Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer is in it. He plays this really old German guy who's like an amateur. He was an amateur golfer who failed to be a pro, and he does all kinds of things. Like he kidnaps the patients and he subjects them to like music therapy and things like that. And he says, "I'm only trying to help you." And he thinks he's so funny. And what's interesting about this guy, Tillman, his name is, the character. Rutger Hauer, of course, is an actor best known for his role in Blade Runner. And other films like that. But what's really good about Tillman, what's really interesting about Tillman, I don't know if it's good, is that he's basically me. Tillman is me. Tillman is me in a parallel universe. If I hadn't quit portering in about 30 years' time, if I hadn't been kicked out of portering or quit, whatever you call it, in about 30 years' time, I'd be him. I'd be this crazy old man who goes around the hospital wearing a sun hat, kidnapping patients and submitting them to therapeutic torture. I would be Tillman, I really would. And that's one of the things I like about Porters. But anyway, I'll say more about the TV series Porters. It's really, there's some great jokes in it, some great scenes. Some of it's a bit painful, like the thing about Simon, the young chap who's a bit over-enthusiastic. He's this guy who wants to be a medical student. He's this kind of Norman Wisdom type wannabe, you know, he's sort of like after this nurse. He's got the hots for this nurse, and she's always getting these attention of these helimed doctors and things like that. And I watched it and I laughed, but I cringed as well, because it's a bit too close to the fact. That's a bit too realistic for me, you know what I mean? It's just very, very perceptive, and it's so perceptive sometimes it's painful. But do please watch Porters on UK TV. Oh, it is such a good, it is so cool, man. It is such a great series. And as I was saying, I said previously, I did a video where I was looking for positive portrayals of hospital porters in the media, and so I went around. I went to look, and I saw things such as Michael Elphick's character in the film Elephant Man. That's John Lynch's Elephant Man. So David Lynch's Elephant Man. I saw Jimmy, the porter in Casualty, played by Robson Green, who's otherwise a very good actor, but in this he was really, it was horrible. He spent his whole life going, oh, I wish I wasn't only a nurse. I wish I wasn't only a porter. I wish I wasn't only a porter. I wish I was a nurse, and things like that. And you know how much that bugs me. You know, that's one of the most annoying things in my life. And then there was, who else was there? There was that awful, disgusting film Paper Mask, and I'll have to do a whole entire video about that, because that pissed me off like nobody's business. And I concluded that the only positive portrayal of hospital porters in all of fiction was my own novel Evan's Land. But that's changed now, because the Porters TV series actually does portray us positively, and that's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Anyway, I'm at the Knock now, so I'm going to go in there, drop off another flyer, then head on to the Churchill. Okay, right, I'm out at the west entrance now of the Knock. I'm going to head across to the Churchill, which is just over there, so I'll only be filming on this little bit here now. But I've just I went in there, and that hasn't changed much, the Knock. It's still pretty much the same. The reception desk is still in the same place, so they've decided it's not that bad a business to keep it there. There's two people there, a receptionist and a guy who's in a porter's uniform. He's G4S. He was a G4S employee, but they are contracted out to the G4S at Knock. And so I saluted him and said pride and dignity, and I smiled at the civilian receptionist and shook her hand. Well, I tried to. I sort of leaned out, and then she sort of like pulled back a bit. But I just wanted to wish them the best. I handed her the handed her the flyer anyway. So that's that done. I was just thinking, it's sad that that people do. You know, there's so many decent people out there who just allow bad shit to happen, and they even play a role in it, thinking it's not their fault. I mean, Gemma O'Doherty did a video just yesterday, I think, about these trees they're cutting down near where she lives. And she went and talked to the workman, and he said, do you realise this is spring? Do you realise the birds are nesting in there? And he said, oh, well, it's just doing my job, mate, you know. Just doing my job, can't do anything about it, you know, like that. And of course, that's true. I mean, what would happen to that workman if he went back to his boss and he said, I'm not going to do it because the birds are nesting. And of course, if just one of them did it, he'd get sacked. And that's how they keep control. The thing is, though, if everyone did it, if you got like a mass movement of people not doing it and refusing to cooperate, they can't sack everyone, can they? There I am anyway. The Churchill Hospital. I'm now going to head in there. Now I'm doing things slightly differently this year. I'm not going to give a flyer to the ambulance station. It's really not worth it. I don't think they're interested. Most of the paramedics I knew, I don't think they'd have been, well, I won't say any more than that. I'm just going to go straight into the Porter's Lodge and just drop one there. So I'll see you at the other end, or the other side. Come out of the Churchill Hospital now, and I've some dust on. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's not anthrax. Something I picked up in there. Anyway, I'm out of the Churchill Hospital now, and I've found my way to the little footpath here. This jungle bit, which it's always quite hard to get to find. If I can get down there without falling over, hopefully I can. I've got my work boots on. It's amazing when you wear this yellow jacket, everyone thinks you're kind of like, you're bent on the staff. As David Icke said, you know, luminous jackets and grey suits. But funnily enough, I was asked someone approached me and asked me what I was doing. It's the first time in all these St Theo's expeditions that someone's actually come up and asked me what I was doing. So 10 out of 10 on security at Churchill. Well, there wasn't actually a security officer who did it. It was a nursing auxiliary. Sorry. Healthcare assistant. Fuck these new Orwellian job titles. So nursing auxiliary nurse, whatever you want to use. Fucking bloody. The healthcare assistant. You remember my ODO talk last year? My rant about being called an ODO. Oh yeah. So yeah, this auxiliary nurse came up to me and asked me what I was doing. I said I lied. I said I'd been visiting someone else on my way out. And I says, "Are you parked?" I says, "No, walking." She says, "This is a rather long way to go out. It's easy to go out that way." And I said, "It's in the direction I want to go." And she nodded her head and walked off. The Churchill was actually bigger. It's actually a smaller hospital than the JR. I think it's only about 400, 500 beds, whereas the JR now is about 900. Yet it's spread out much wider. It covers a bigger area because it's lower down. I mean, there are some large, tall buildings there, but most of it is like 1 or 2 story constructions. And so it's a very different architecture and system and layout, geographical layout to the JR, which is tall and covers less, has a smaller footprint. Churchill has a bigger footprint, much less tall. There are some it consists of there's lots of covered walkways that go between the wards, and some of the original buildings are still there today. The Churchill actually started off as I'll just go across here now. I know where I am now. As a military hospital in World War II, and I've lost my notes. Hang on, where's my notes? Oh, shit. Excuse me a moment. Yeah, it's that. Hang on, it must be in here. Where's my bloody notes? I've dropped my book of notes. Have I? Oh, here it is. Can't take me anywhere. I can't organise anything. Yeah, it started off as a military hospital in World War II, run by the Americans, named after the wartime Prime Minister, of course. They used to have old Quonset huts. I remember over on the far side, in that direction, the big half-pipe hangar type things. And they kept the name, and also they still fly the Stars and Stripes there on the flagpole. I noticed that. People ask me about that, and I'm always very impressed. I'm always very, very pleased to inform them and sound very clever when I tell them why they fly the Stars and Stripes as well as the Union Jack on there. I think it's the only NHS hospital that does that, as far as I know. Now, I was saying before, like about how the hospital was my home, and I didn't mean to sound plaintive. It's just it was. I was completely institutionalised there. I was there for 23 years, which was my entire adult life, basically. From the age of 18 to, well, I don't tell you how old I am. I don't want to reveal my age, but I was there a long time. And, yeah, 23 years is a long time. I was completely, utterly institutionalised. I mean, I worked out once that all my social life, my entire social life, was in some way connected to that hospital. Everything. From start to finish. Everything was connected to that. So I, you know, either they were people who were there at the hospital, or they were people who knew people I met through the hospital for the very, very productive, very fertile social life that being in the hospital gives you. being a part of that team and a part of that family, and gives you and is a family. And being dragged out of that by the scruff of your neck, it's not just losing a job. It's a total transformation of my life. It must be like perhaps how an old soldier feels when he has to leave the army. Total transformation of my life. And what being sacked for, well, I still think it was suspicious what was done to me. But funnily enough, like a guy I know, like, I mean, in the JR, I still know some people at the JR. In fact, I only saw one person I knew while I was there, or only one person I wanted to identify myself to. As I was walking out the women's centre entrance, as I went through the hospital, I bumped into Brother Porter and said hello, saluted him, and said hello to him. So I met someone there. But I have got other people on the inside that I know. There's a person I sometimes, occasionally... There's one person I regularly socialise with. I haven't seen him for a couple of months. I should get in touch with him. He's probably my only sort of like non-internet friend in this city. There's this one guy I know who's very helpful. He's the guy I dropped the flyers off to in the envelope, which I've just done. He's the one who distributes them among the other porters. And I won't tell you his name because we all know what would happen to him if I told you what his name was. I'll never identify him. But he's been a very, very important ally for me. A lot of the information you read on the HPWA blog comes from him. By the way, I'll put links in the description box to the sources I'm talking about in this particular video, all of which, or most or all, are on the HPWA blog. It's worth reading that, actually, regularly, checking it. Now, he says this, they put posters up about warning staff about social media use. Because apparently it has happened. I mean, I was a very extreme case, but it does happen that people get into trouble for their social media content. And there's some very famous cases of certain BBC radio presenters and rock stars and actors and people like that. But there was this poster up there which gives you a list of guidelines for how to behave yourself on social media. And it says, number 1, act professionally. Well, that's obvious, isn't it? Number 2, keep posts positive. Number 3, keep your posts person and patient free. 4, protect yourself and your professional reputation. Number 5, ensure privacy. And number 6, pause before you post. Consider the implications. It's like... Now, the thing about it is, number 1 and 3 are obvious, okay? Thing is, there are already rules about patient confidentiality and everything to do within a hospital. Everything you do, everything that happens within a hospital, and everyone, it's all top secret, and you never talk to people about it outside. Never. That's obvious. Same with number 1, act professionally. Again, that's completely and utterly understandable. And what's more, the guidelines already exist for that. It's what we do anyway. Number 2 is keep posts positive. What the hell does that mean? Keep posts positive. That's ridiculous. That's again, it doesn't really. What does that mean? Keep posts positive? Right. Number 4 is protect yourself and your professional reputation from what? Pixels that are armed and dangerous. I mean, what are you protecting yourself from? Number 5 was ensure privacy. Right. Well, that's really an extension of point 3, isn't it? Now, the thing about it is, like, if you actually want to see this poster, it's on the HPWA blog. I'll see the link in the description box. It's there. The HPWA blog. I'll put a link there, and you can see the poster yourself. He took a photo of it for me to show me. If it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't even know it was there. Anyway, number 6 is interesting. Pause before you post. Consider the implications. The implications is like, what? What are people doing which is so terrible? And this is truly Orwellian. And what's Orwellian? There's several things that are Orwellian about it. Firstly, they don't really ever address the ethical problems of this system at all. They don't ever. You don't ever hear people say, well, are these people actually doing anything wrong? Do they really deserve the aggravation they're getting? Is it really so bad when people post certain things on social media anyway? Why is it? Why do people get in such a complete and total tizzy when they do it? Why is a slip of a thumb on your mobile phone when you're on Twitter enough to cost you your job or even put you in jail? You know, you've all seen the stories, haven't you? I'm going to blow this airport sky high. Hope I don't get AIDS. It's all right when I get off the plane. You know, you've seen those stories about these people who've been treated in the most appalling way by the Twitterati and that. You see, keep pause before you post. Consider the implications. It's that's my mind control voice. What? You see, it's that doesn't really tell you anything, does it? In fact, nothing on this list tells you anything. There's absolutely nothing on this list at all. There's nothing on this post, this guidelines poster for staff on social media. Absolutely nothing that tells you about our specific obligations and our specific rights online. There's nothing. I think we do need the was it the SOPA Act, whatever it was that Trump was going to bring in, the Social Media Rights Act. Social media rights. It's just, you know, number 6 is just genuinely, it's just innuendo. I can't be dealing with that, I really can't. You see, so it really, that post is not very helpful at all, is it? And the reason is it's because management are trying to, they're forcing themselves to try and address a situation which is impossible because it is so vague that it can't be defined linguistically. It's it's thought crime, it's crime think, it's wrong think, it's double think, it's own life, it's all these other things that can't be defined, it can't be articulated. All you can do is drop hints. You can smear innuendos around the place everywhere and hope that people can pick it up. And if you don't, too bad. Oh. Anyway, what else happened this year? Well, I'm pleased to say, you know if you watch regularly that I'm a pro-lifer, as they say. I was very pleased to see that things aren't going too well in Ireland for old George Soros and his agenda, and Peter Sutherland and all those people. It's going pretty badly for them, actually. There's now some legislation going through, and there's some pressure being put on the government to allow conscientious objectors when it comes to performing terminations of pregnancy. That is that if you really don't feel comfortable doing it, you shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't have to. And this could even include referring patients to other practitioners who do. It's a major step in the right direction. And apparently it's a group of midwives actually in Dublin who are behind it all. They're the ones leading this rebellion against the government, where the Human Rights Act, the essential Human Rights Act, which is the 8th Amendment to the Irish Constitution, was just done away with in this referendum. You may think, Ben, I thought you liked referendums. Well, not when they're about constitutions. You can't have a referendum on constitution. You can have a constitutional Congress. Secondly, we're talking here about you can't have a referendum on legalising murder, which is what this was. So well done to them. Now, Peter Mayhew has died. Now I was very sad to hear this. Peter Mayhew, of course, is this huge tall guy. He's an actor. Now he was a hospital porter. He was at King's College, and he joined in 1963. And he was so tall, they had to get a special uniform made for him because he was so tall. He's a 6'9", I believe, really, really tall. And this giant of a man wanted to be an actor, and he didn't know if he'd ever get a role being so tall. There's a limit on the number of roles he could play. But then, of course, he became the one and only Chewbacca. And Chewbacca, he played the Chewbacca in all the movies apart from the last two. But then there was someone else inside the Chewbacca suit. But he was employed as a special assistant to that particular actor. I think it wasn't... You could see, actually, and believe it or not, I'm not trying to be like a sort of cultist type culture vulture here, but you could see there was something wrong. I mean, for example, when in the scene in the Force Awakens when Han Solo dies. Sorry, spoiler. Yeah, and Darth Vader's Luke's father as well. Just to let you know. Yes, Han Solo gets killed. He gets killed by his own son in the Force Awakens. Chewbacca's response to that is just like it's a bit lackluster. He doesn't have the emotion I always assumed Chewbacca would have when he saw Han Solo die, because Chewbacca's been described as being like an ape. Some people compare him to Bigfoot, but he's much more like a dog, I think, especially in his personality. A sort of super intelligent dog. And you know what dogs are like when their owner dies? they go to pieces. And Chewbacca, his reaction just was not realistic. That's what I'm saying. But Peter Mayhew sadly passed away. He was ill for quite a long time. In fact, he couldn't walk, which is why he couldn't play Chewbacca. He's had lots of problems through his life because of his great height. Has caused a number of health problems, and he was using a mobility scooter when he turned up at the last Oscars, which is sad to see him. But he was a hospital porter at King's College, and so I salute my proud and dignified brother Porter. Rest in peace on eternal night shift, Peter Mayhew. Yeah. Now, more news. Sarah Cute has lost her appeal. Now, I talked about her either last year or the year before. Sarah Cute was a intensive care sister. She was at the Darren Hospital in Kent, and she was sacked. She was sacked because she was praying with patients, and she gave one a Bible and things like this. And she was kicked out, and I covered it at the time, and I thought how horrible I thought that was. I thought it was a mean-spirited thing to do, and it's typical of the NHS in that they are very selective. They're nasty in their selectiveness about who they persecute and why. So this reveals a lot about that, because it seemed unfair. I mean, I imagine if she wasn't a Christian, they'd probably been a bit more tolerant. You know what it's like in this world. And so Sister Cute, she appealed. She went through the appeal process at the trust, failed, so she sued them for unfair dismissal and lost. And it's just been announced that she lost. And I'm very sad. I'm very sad to hear that. Funnily enough, it's weird. It's like they had all these patients come on to testify as witnesses in this industrial tribunal, and they were like, they would say things like, "Oh, what she did was like a Monty Python skit, the way she went on about religion all the time. Oh, it was very bizarre. She spent more time preaching than she did doing her job." Okay, well, the thing about more time preaching than doing her job, right? First of all, nursing is a social job. You have to have is a job which requires social skills. So these things can be part of your job. Secondly, give it to me in hours and minutes. How many hours and minutes did she spend supposedly preaching, and how many hours and minutes did she spend doing her job? It's just hyperbole. It's a nonsense phrase. It should not be submitted as evidence, and the judge should have not allowed that to be submitted. I'm just getting there's raindrops on the lens. And very bizarre, Monty Python skit. Well, I love Monty Python. I assume they're referring to the life of Brian. I love Monty Python. I think they're great. But very bizarre. Now, this is what it says. Her behaviour was very bizarre. Not abusive. Not intimidating. Not humiliating. Bizarre. Bizarre. That seems a strange word to use when you're taking away a 15-year career from a very expert, very important, valuable, should be valuable member of staff. Bizarre. She's just bizarre. She's a bit bizarre, this woman. This is what I mean when I say the NHS is nasty in its selectivity. The NHS tolerates some appalling levels of performance and conduct among its servicemen. Really, really bad. I mean, I could tell you some stories about people turning up late every day, going home early, skiving off, smoking in the toilets. There was violence. There was drug abuse. There was all kinds of sexual abuse. Oh God, I couldn't even begin. Some of it got into the media. I reported it wherever I saw it, but the NHS tolerates really, really low standards from people. And if you're good at your job, well, you often hear the phrase, don't you? Oh, if you're good at your job. So a lot of people in NHS, they're really, really brave and dedicated healthcare professionals. They don't get the appreciation they deserve. And of course, that's true, but it's not just that. It's not that you don't get the appreciation that you deserve. It's that you get hated for it. The only way, if you want a long, successful career in the NHS, this is advice to anyone now thinking of going into hospital porter, in nursing, medicine, anything, right? Be the laziest and most incompetent shitbag you can possibly get away with. I mean, it is like that. It is a race. It's a race to the bottom. It's like, I think some of them were angry with me because I was good at my job and I took pride in it, and they didn't like that. For instance, they said, "Oh, take your tie off on night shift, Ben. You don't need it." And I said, "No, I want to wear my uniform properly." And they went, that. I said, what's the problem? They were like really annoyed that I did this. And I thought, what's the problem? What makes you the injured party if I choose to wear my uniform properly on a night shift? See, I think that was it. Maybe, I mean, Molyneux's talked a bit about this, about state bureaucracies, about how, you know, everyone has to, if you're too good, you make everyone look bad. You mustn't be too good. Things like that in your work. There's that line from Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead where she says, who inspired Molyneux, she says, oh, the architect, I can't remember his name, the guy who mentors Howard Rourke, he says, he was ABC, he was doing all these things right, but he made one fatal mistake: he loved his work. Maybe that's it. So basically, yeah, you got to just make sure, like I said, I'm sorry if that sounds cynical, but it is. I mean, everyone's worth exactly the same, all right? If you're a good experienced nurse who reached the level of ITU sister, you're worth exactly the same as everyone else, and they'll get rid of you. They'll get rid of you probably before they get rid of some lazy new idiot who's just joined. Because it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter. I think funny, it doesn't matter. What matters is the better you are, they want to get rid of the good people. I swear, it seems like that. You know, they should. I should talk about this with some of the others. You know, look what they let that guy get away with. That lazy bugger. He's off for another smoke. He's off. He'll be there 2 hours down at the service entrance. He'll be down there 2 hours down, and they let him get away with it. They just let him get away with it. So, and then at the same time, look at me. What did I do? Look how quickly they spat me out like a mouthful of hot lava. What does that tell you about the institution? What does it tell you? As I said, I miss it less and less every day. Now, I've done another... This is the last story for this particular St Theo's video. I've done another round of blocks and digs. Now, if you remember my blocks and digs from last time, blocks and digs is where I think it was the 2017 video I did this in. I talked about this in. Blocks and digs is where there'll be a link in this description box anyway. I can't remember which video it was I talked about this. But if it's a kind of variation on the dignity statement. Right, you have a dignity statement. Now, what you do, like, it's kind of like a social media dignity statement. And what you do is, if someone like unfriends you on Facebook because you wouldn't join them in some truth mob or something like that, or some other reason, the usual bitchiness, the usual internet bitchiness. What you do is, what I did was I cut and pasted the lyrics to my Porter's Pride and Dignity song, which I'll end this video with, and then I cut and paste them into like a Facebook message or Twitter DM, and then I send it. And the moment I see, I make sure I do it at a social time of day when they're likely to be online. And the moment I see a little tick there saying "seen," I block them so they can't reply. Childish, you might think, eh? Childish, nasty, bitchy, the kind of thing I moan about other people doing. Well, it's just exactly how tolerant am I meant to be? How much longer am I supposed to, like, bite my tongue when just other people keep doing this all the time? I mean, I have my limits. I have a threshold. And you know what? When I've done it, and I've just done it again, I've just done another load. Oh, I did four. I did four just yesterday. I did 4 blocks and digs. These were people who'd been very nasty to me over the whole Peter Robbins thing. And do you all know what I'm talking about when I say the Peter Robbins thing? It's to do with Larry Warren, Peter Robbins and stuff like that. I'm going to have to make a bloody video about that, aren't I? Oh shit, I'm going to do a HPANWO radio show anyway, but I'm going to have to make a bloody video about the Peter Robbins thing. But anyway, I'll go into details there, but basically these people were very nasty to me. These were people who like unfriended me or just turned their back on me and ran away when it was too much trouble because of the Peter Robbins thing. Now, let's be honest, this included serious defamation of my character, accusations of very, very nasty, unpleasant things that I was accused of. And these people believed it and they unfriended me, or maybe they just thought it was too much trouble. It's the usual thing, just like with Miles Johnston, the usual thing. Now, one of them actually wrote to me and they said, Ben, just to let you know, I'm unfriending you because of the horrible... And she talked about the Peter Robbins thing. And I wrote back to her and I said, what? Why? Look, it wasn't my fault. Look, and I protested my innocence. She wouldn't listen to me. Wouldn't listen to me. Wouldn't listen... and then I looked again and saw she unfriended me. Anyway, she got the first one. I sent her I did a block and dig with her, and I'm glad. I enjoyed it, I must say. I felt very happy when I'd done that. Childish it might be. It may be just stooping to their level, but I just don't care. I have my limits. I can't just keep being... I'm not a saint, and I can't act like a saint. And there's going to be some more coming as well. And some people watching this may know who they are, and they can expect one. Anyway, that is... St Theo. Now, by the time you're watching this, it will be St Theo's Day. It's actually Wednesday today, so it's a few days early. Not such nice weather, of course. I'm not feeling at my best today. Got the man flu, like I said. But I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed doing this once again. I really have. It's been fun. And thank you, all of you, you viewers, HPANWO TV viewers, hospital porters and non-hospital porters, for watching. I appreciate it. I shall close with the Porter's Pride and Dignity song right now. Porter's Dignity, Porter's Pride, Porter's Dignity, and Porter's Pride, Porter's Dignity, and Porter's Pride, Porter's Dignity, Porter's Dignity, Porter's Pride, Porter's Pride, Porter's Pride, and Porter's Dignity, Porter's Pride, Porter's Dignity, Porter's Pride, Porter's Pride. A very happy St Theo's Day to all of you. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.
Once you do that, once you get that aura sorted out, everything else becomes pretty much effortless. It could even be that the usual dignity statements, the acute ones, which I've described, become redundant. So what you do is, don't walk along with your shoulders slumped, hold your head high, swing your arms in pride and dignity confidently, keep your uniform immaculate, keep all your badges correct, iron your shirt, polish your boots, put your epaulets on high. And once you do that, and the moment you walk into a ward or you're walking down a corridor, everyone will look at you and they will see it. It's like a signal being given off by a beacon, and they will look at you. People, their response will be either a sense of respect for what you project, otherwise, or it'll be a sense of despair if they are one of these people who like taking away the dignity and pride of a hospital porter. Either way, it's the right thing to do, and it's correct. And I'll tell you what, you will notice it. You will notice a change.